ethics isn't an afterthought, it's sort of part of the responsible AI development, because I think the trust in AI is earned. We really shouldn't assume it.
Education was key for us, and that was because most pathologists we felt had gaps when it came to AI, and most technical people like computer scientists working in AI had gaps in pathology because they were not trained that way.
Keywords educate and the trust is earned. De-demonize the bias, and through education you basically make people aware how it works, especially in the aspects where people are most afraid of, because the thing people are most afraid of that it's going to hurt somebody, and it can hurt through one-sided data. The moment you know how it works, you know how to mitigate the risks that come with the AI tools.
So this would be our way to leave a mark, enable more pathology lab medicine departments to incorporate computational pathology and AI into their workflow landscape, because we honestly feel that without it, you could be compromising patient care in the future.
Welcome, my digital pathology trailblazers. Today, I think I have the highest amount of guests I have ever had on a podcast. I have 3 guests, Dr. Liron Pantanowitz, Dr. Hooman Rashidi, and Dr. Matthew Hanna from University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, who are now co-creating the Computational Pathology and AI Center of Excellence. Welcome, everyone. How are you today, guys?
Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great start to our day.
Because I have so many of you, I have a couple of questions, and the main topic of our podcast is the 7-part AI series that you co-authored, that is basically a super comprehensive and very up-to-date guide for pathologists, medical professionals about AI in pathology. So, Liron, I'm going to start with you. Let's give a super brief introduction to those who may not know you yet, even though you're a pretty famous person. You all are pretty famous people in the digital pathology world. But for those who are just starting this journey, a couple of words about you and about the CPACE, the Computational Pathology and AI Center of Excellence at UPMC.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And thanks for inviting us all onto this podcast to discuss one of our favorite topics, which is computational pathology. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the chair of pathology at the University of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. And I came back to Pittsburgh 2 years ago to chair the department. And one of the first things I did was create a division of computational pathology and informatics. I think it's important to have a formal computational pathology division because that's necessary for current and future practice. But because we don't know enough about computational pathology, I felt it was necessary to create a center within that division, which is our Computational Pathology and AI Center of Excellence. And to help actually run that center, I recruited Dr. Hooman Rashidi, and together we recruited Dr. Matthew Hanna to participate in the center. Our center has 3 missions: an academic mission, 2 solve problems, and while we're doing 1 and 2, if we can generate intellectual property, why not? So education was key for us, and that was because most pathologists we felt had gaps when it came to AI, and most technical people like computer scientists working in AI had gaps in pathology because they were not trained that way. The 3 of us contribute to the literature, and we read and we peer review a lot of literature. And we noticed that there are 2 types of publications out there related to computational pathology. And there are a lot. There are tens of thousands of publications on computational pathology if you do a PubMed search. Many of the papers are opinion pieces where people, discuss the hype and topics like ethics related to pathology, but they don't necessarily use it or develop AI. On the other hand, there's literature for folks that actually develop the AI coming from a computer vision background, and their publications are very technical and often difficult for folks in the laboratory to understand the technology and figure out how do we actually apply it to our routine practice. And because of our academic mission to share and disseminate what we've learned through computational pathology, the 3 of us got together and decided to provide at least some contribution to the literature that would address computational pathology from A to Z that covers all topics relevant to pathologists, those training in pathology, but also relevant to computer scientists, data engineers, and industry folks. And so that's how this series got born.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Hooman, you're going to be my next person to introduce yourself. And I'm just going to give a super quick background. And the first time we met was in 2023. We were both speakers at the Veterinary Pathology Conference at the annual meeting of the ACPP, American College of Veterinary Pathologists. And then I think we were the ones that would geek out most about AI. So at the dinner, they sat us together and then we spent like 2 hours talking about things. So I knew the center was coming. I knew the AI paper series was coming, but why this series? Why now? And what did you think was missing that kind of triggered creating this?
I'm Hooman Rashidi, and I'm the executive director of our AI Center, CPACE, which is our Computational Pathology and AI Center of Excellence. I'm also the Associate Dean of AI for University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, and I'm wearing 2 different hats, but they're very complementary. So I would say a couple of things. One is, as Liron had said, the AI articles that him had written, Matthew had written, I had written, and others had written. One was there's some great articles out there, and that's great. And some of us had written some of those, and others have written them, and we've been using a lot of these.
I've cited some of them.
Yeah, but there've been no there've been no cohesive one series in the same journal that kind of follows a path that's relevant if you would want to use it for a course, for example. So given that as part of my job here at Pitt, the dean wanted us to also be the global leaders or one of the global leaders within AI literacy for medical students and graduate students within different health sciences. We obviously needed the right reference material that would be able to also support that. So there was a double whammy here where, as Liron said, we're trying to educate the vast majority of our pathologists and laboratory professional in terms of AI, in their day-to-day practice. So how could they assess tools properly? How could they assess literature appropriately? So just a primer, if you will, that could let them kind of dive in there and be able to do it appropriately and in the right, efficient way and scientifically sound. But secondarily, how do we democratize AI in terms of AI literacy for our upcoming, residents, fellows, medical students, graduate students? And so this was an opportunity where CPACE was leading the effort in terms of bringing together the right group of experts that would be able to tackle those exact needs. So by bringing the right group of authors that would be able to both technically and also, in practice, rights, they could then create a series that would serve the needs of not only the community as a whole if they read these independently, but also as these series becoming the primer for our AI course within our medical school / for our graduate students and medical students. So that was the main reason of bringing it on to the space, was kind of like serving both needs. And then the other thing that was important to us is, and again, Liron touched on that, was we also wanted to make sure that the write-ups were very accessible and ingestible by everyone who would read them, because we know that the vast majority of the people who are going to be reading these, so your average reader, the average person who's going to be accessing these articles, and quite frank, 99% of the people who are interested in AI, they're not necessarily well versed within the coding aspects. And also when you bring in, coding elements and also mathematical elements in there, you will lose the audience. So we also wanted to make it accessible from a content standpoint so that it was more around concepts rather than very detailed technical aspects, but still incorporating technical needs for those who actually had that extra, if you will, requirement within their particular framework. So that's where the series was born in terms of, and we walk people in the series from basically the first one, which is around terminologies. And so it covers 200 or close to 200 of the most commonly used terminologies in machine learning and AI with definitions and examples. And that's, from what we know, it's one of the most extensive glossary of terms that we know, along with a quick little general introduction of what is generative AI, what is non-generative AI, and then following to Article 2, it's basically a journey in Article 2 that goes into a deeper dive in the generative AI aspects and what is ChatGPT, what are custom chatbots, and so on and so forth, their advantages, limitations, and all of that. And then the third one goes after around non-generative AI, things that we've been using for decades that people should be familiar with, cancer diagnosis versus normal, and so on, sepsis versus no sepsis, so on and so forth. And then the fourth one, which is around statistics of AI, of both generative AI and non-generative AI, in terms of what are their similarities and differences, especially since a lot of the statistical information within generative AI is unknown to most people right now. So kind of familiarizing them with those terminologies. And then the fifth one, which is around regulatory aspects of AI. So people know what kind of regulations that are both in the US and outside, followed by the sixth one, which is around bias considerations and ethical aspects. And then finally finishing up with the machine learning operations and the future of AI with multi-agentic frameworks and how they're basically changing and going to be changing, completely transforming our landscape. So that was the idea, so that the baseline framework for your average reader is set, and then they can go from there to other papers and other literature and other resources to kind of upgrade their learning. I hope that explained it.
Definitely. And I know you know what I did with the whole series. I don't know if Matt and Liron and everybody who's listening to this knows. So the moment it went out, I get a message on LinkedIn from Hooman. Hey, Alex, they're out there and here are all the links. So I get the links to all the 7 papers. And I'm like, fantastic. I have this journal club series at 6 a.m. in the morning on Fridays. And I'm like, this is what I'm going to be talking about. And I actually went through all of them, read them all, and explained them to people who were joining those live streams. Some of them just starting in the digital pathology space. And I chat with them, I talk with them during the live stream. So there were people who were just joining the computational pathology space, digital pathology space, people who had no idea about AI, but know that this is coming. And that was such a fantastic resource for me to walk people through this topic. And I'm going to be doing more with this. So I'm going to be incorporating it into a book that I've written and everything I can basically do with it. And what I wanted to thank you about, and before I officially introduce Matthew, Hanna, and ask you the next question, but what I wanted to thank you for was the license you published this under. Because this series is published in Modern Pathology, but it is published under the Creative Commons Attribution License, which is the most permissive model you can publish under. So this, you can share it, remix, build work, commercial work, and basically do everything with it as long as you say where it comes from. So thank you so much, because you basically have given a resource to the world that everybody can take and do their own version of it with this at its core.
Yeah, our goal was truly democratizing it and making it accessible to everyone. And also kudos to George Netto, the past editor-in-chief of on Modern Pathology, who actually was supportive of that and basically commissioned this series. I think he should be credited for that. And then also, we should credit also Catherine, from the managing editor of Modern Pathology too, who basically was instrumental in terms of helping us put it in place and getting it there. But yeah, you're right. That was we intended to make sure that it basically more and more people could actually have access to this.
This is amazing. Matt, let's start with you now. It's so difficult to manage 3 guests on the podcast, but give a quick intro to you, to those who don't know you yet. And your question is going to be, because obviously, as you were writing the series, you were also using the AI tools that you talk about, the generative AI. I don't know if you use ChatGPT or whatever, right? Whichever tools. I know you use them for figures. And the question to you is going to be, how did you balance this AI assisted workflow that like accelerated you and the teamwork with all the co-authors who contributed to the series?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Matthew Hanna. I'm a pathologist at UPMC, and particularly with CPACE, I'm the director for AI operations. And my other hats at UPMC are the vice chair for pathology informatics. And it was really a pleasure to come into UPMC and have this be sort of one of the first big bangs. But of course, it wasn't exclusive to only us at UPMC. We really wanted to have this series, which was honestly a result of a lot of longstanding relationships, new connections that were formed. A lot of us had this mutual interest in advancing AI in medicine and in pathology. Some of us had collaborated across institutions for many years. And I think bringing in our collective network was truly beneficial, because it really just aligned with very specific angles that we wanted to include. So we sort of organized the project around, whether we set up regular meetings, working documents, we assigned clear sort of ownership for various topics, and the diversity of perspectives from a lot of the other academic researchers and academic centers, as well as, of course, practicing clinicians. As Dr. Pantanowitz said, we want to sort of walk the talk, or walk the walk and talk the talk here, so that we can have practicing pathologists actually put out practical information in regards to this to the masses. And of course, accessibility, as Dr. Rashidi said, was one of the project's, I think, biggest focuses and strengths. So we sort of built in this time to all work together, and hopefully it was very fruitful to be able to provide the sort of content that we did. And in terms of drafting some of that content, some of the images were generated using generative AI. And so we wanted to sort of use that as an outline. We use it as an outline, or perhaps as a scaffolding tool for outlines, brainstorming, generating ideas. But ultimately, all of the content that was fleshed out and drafted was human written, with some support for the images that were using these generative AI tools. I think it was interesting to work with them, as well as, of course, the content that's being drafted is related to AI, and seeing that mix and being able to use the tools and generating the content, I think, was very rewarding.
It doesn't sound like AI at all. And by now, everybody who's using the tools knows, like, I don't know what the frequency of certain words increased when ChatGPT started being used. Like, everything is, I don't know, there are certain words and they're going to come to be, but this doesn't sound like it. But you say you didn't use the text AIs for that. How did you do it so fast then? Because if I was writing it,
yeah, we definitely didn't use the AI outputs verbatim. So, but it sort of gave us a head start or outline, and we had a very aggressive timeline in wanting to publish the content, and I'll also call out Dr. Netto and his group at Modern Pathology for keeping us honest with our timelines. But it was a great team of people across lots of various institutions that we were able to put this together and load balance to be able to actually publish all that amazing content. So it was definitely an all hands on deck approach.
You were super fast, and like the only way for this to be still relevant was to go so fast. So you guys achieved something unachievable in the publication world, that was basically putting out seven like full review papers. And my like the one I was most impressed about, or maybe not most impressed, but the one that filled my largest knowledge gap was the regulatory one. I had no idea how many guidelines and like already regulatory frameworks are out there, because the like slogan or the thing that everybody says about those technologies is like, oh, regulators are lagging behind. They like don't know. Oh yes, they know, and they put out regulations, and all those regulations are listed in a table in one of your papers. So now I'm like, when somebody says the regulators are lagging behind, I'm like, no, go read paper number. Which one is it? 5 or 4? I don't know which one.
Yeah,
5 or 6.
Yeah, so 5. Yeah, number 5. But 5. I have to say that one, just to be objective, we have to credit on that particular one. Both myself and Dr. Hanna, I have to credit Dr. Pantanowitz on that, because
yes,
he spent more time, reviewing. He even bought books on various countries that are doing things. So I initially, I'll be honest, I was like, really, is this necessary, Liron? Let's try to expedite it. But no, it worked out really great. It's just, credit to him that also he brought in we brought in a fantastic group in addition to, him driving it. So that basically sets it aside that of something that, so more, kudos for him to drive that as the lead.
Daryl, how do you feel as the new regulatory expert in the space after doing all this research? Is it something you liked, or was it like nobody wanted to do this? Because I would not volunteer to do the regulatory one for sure.
Well, let's be honest. The two of them assigned it to me because they didn't want to do it.
That's true.
But the good thing is that it's probably one of the most important topics, because you can have a lot of fun building things and testing them out, but if you actually want to use them every day in routine practice so that patients benefit and the people in your practice can benefit and give them the added value, you really need to understand how to navigate that regulatory environment. And so I felt it was important for me to get up to speed with everything that had been created, which is why Dr. Rashidi is right. I spent a lot of time, investigating the regulatory environment, not just in the US, because our target for these series was a global population of people interested in computational pathology, not just US focused. And so that's why he's right. I read about regulations in China and EU and even in Asia, so that I could understand the regulatory environment there. But the key to putting that all together was to look for common threads. What are all the regulators and policymakers actually trying to achieve when they're doing this, which is it more than technical? Is there an ethical and social aspect to this that they would like to address? Are they trying to build trust with the end user and the patients who will benefit from this? And so I think I'm glad that the article turned out to be, readable and usable, because we really looked at regulations around the world and conveyed that theme. And Dr. Rashidi is right. We assembled a really amazing team of people who have years of experience in regulations in the lab environment, and LDTs and compliance and FDA. So it actually came together quicker and easier than we had anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really impressed. Also, so the other ones, who was the main driver for the ethical considerations?
Matthew did that. Dr. Hanna.
Matthew's the most ethical among us, so that's why we assigned
so that's why he got the task. So I loved both. The bias was bias and ethics together. No, bias.
Right.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think this is an interesting topic, not only because we want to be ethical, but it has like this common meaning that everybody understands, and it has a very specific meaning in the medical field, and it's actually a field of science, the bioethics, biomedical ethics. And the same with biases. You have the common meaning of the world. Oh, something is biased, somebody is biased, but then you have this super specific meaning, significance of, okay, why is an algorithm biased? What kind of sources of bias are contributing to that, and what it means? And I also loved in that one that you always have like a mitigation strategy. Okay, this is where it comes from. This is what the risk is. And this is a mitigation strategy, which I think is also one of the common threads in how regulators are looking at this topic. But Matt, tell me, how did you, because I thought the transition was it was clear. How did you struggle with these two, the common meaning and the scientific meaning? Did you consciously transition from one another? How was the experience of writing that one or leading that one?
No, it's fantastic, and I'm glad it came across clear. I think ethics and bias in AI aren't just theoretical issues. They're very real, especially in medicine. When we deploy these AI tools in healthcare, we're not just automating tasks or making decisions that directly affect people's lives. So we sort of want to ask, and sort of in writing the paper, is wanting to ask, how do we build a model? What data is it trained on? Where are ethics and bias, and more importantly, where might it fail? And so, just from the perspective of education, trying to put two and two together and saying, okay, well, let's educate and say, where are there bias, and then how can you mitigate it? And bias can often enter AI systems through historical data, as we mentioned in the article, data that may affect different diagnosis rates, or even how pathology slides are captured and labeled. And I mean, it could be pervasive through a lot of what we do. So if we don't address those up front, we risk really encoding all of those biases within our data, which will affect all of the outputs. And so at CPACE, in our broader work, we're really focused on transparency, accountability, inclusion. And so we want to make sure we understand how those models work, who they may benefit, or who may be at risk. And so, just ethics isn't an afterthought. It's sort of part of the responsible AI development. And hopefully we included a lot of that in the paper from what people read. So we just want to keep clinicians, patients, and these communities engaged in the conversation and educated about it, because I think the trust in AI is earned. That we really shouldn't assume it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keywords: educate, and the trust is earned. And I think this particular one de-demonized the bias and through education. Through this particular one, you basically make people aware how it works. And when you know how it works, especially in the aspects where people are most afraid of, because the thing people are most afraid of, that it's going to hurt somebody. And it can hurt through, one-sided data, different options. The moment you know how it works, you know how to mitigate the risks that come with the AI tools, like with any other tools, right? So I think you very much achieved this goal of education and earning trust in AI, because now it's so much clearer how it works and where you need to pay attention. So, I'm basically impressed with the series. I love it. I'm building a course on it as well, and spreading the word. So, what's next, guys? For each one of you, do you have next publications you're gonna write, next tasks that you're responsible for at CPACE, or in general, what do you want to do next in your digital pathology life and computational pathology life at UPMC at CPACE?
So I'll take that. I think that's a really good question. So, and this is kind of in tune with what both Matthew and Liron had mentioned earlier, which was um, we've built this as kind of like, if you will, a building block of various things that we have within CPACE and University of Pittsburgh in terms of our mission, in terms of how do we incorporate computational pathology and AI within our framework, and so that actually expedites research, innovation, and education. So checks off the academic missions, like what Liron was saying.
Mhm.
But just as importantly, our duty as practitioners and scientists to also propagate the knowledge to the next generation who's going to be affected by these technologies. So this series is just a building block of various other tools that we're building and coalitions that we're building with other centers that enables us to pass on the knowledge that we're gaining from the content, but also about center building that's required for typical pathology departments to have. That's one thing that I think all three of us are so 100% aligned on, which is we feel 100% strongly that the need for computational pathology and AI is not just a nice want. It's an absolute need. And the more and more these AI tools are being incorporated, the more different departments need to carve out resources to set up similar centers to what we've set up, CPACE type.
Mhm.
So this would be our way to leave a mark, hopefully, to enable more pathology lab medicine departments to incorporate computational pathology and AI into their workflow landscape, because we honestly feel that without it, you could be compromising patient care in the future. And even now, starting now, if you don't basically don't have the right tool sets and the right people at the table. So that's really in my head in terms of what I envision, what these types of activities, resources, the center activities, and what we bring out is going to contribute to us locally in our PIT environment, but also just as importantly, globally to the entire global community.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Number one, I think it's very unique that the three of us together are being able to create this. So it's 1 + 1 + 1 = much more than 3. We have an amazing synergy.
7, right? 7-part series.
Yeah. So exactly. So I think there's a lot more to come from us. We are growing our team. We continue to hire faculty, software engineers, data scientists, etc. So our team's growing, which is great to see our success. We are making a lot of tools, and we're already started to test and use some of those tools in our own environment. So watch out for that space. C-Space will definitely add to your space. We are putting on lots of courses, as Dr. Rashidi said. And what I think is very exciting is some of these courses that he's helping create are for medical students. And I think for the first time, we may change the pipeline of medical students coming into pathology, because now they are looking at a career not in the basement in some smelly morgue, but they're looking at a career where they can use AI to practice medicine. And so that's pretty cool. And heads up that we are currently working on our first CPACE textbook. And so soon you'll be able to expect a textbook from us.
Amazing. I'll have to review it on the channel. Matt, any last words of what's next from you?
Well, I'll just say, we were so excited to put out the 7-part series. And I think for us, next steps also include taking it from research and review papers into practice. And the goal is to actually be developing these tools, as Dr. Pantanowitz said, use them in clinical practice. And part of my role here is also doing that clinical translation. And, I'm excited to say we've already started on that journey, and a lot of exciting things to come.
Amazing. My goal for this podcast is basically to send people to the series. Whoever is entering this space, this is definitely the resource for them to go through. And then, so something that I think is a superpower of this series is basically you go through it with understanding, and you can then contribute to the digital pathology AI space with your background, because this is a very multidisciplinary field. But if you don't have like this baseline, this common understanding of the concepts of the topics that you guys covered in this series, then you spend like a year listening to meetings and figuring out what it is about. Where can you plug your expertise in? Whereas with this, like I think Liron, you said, this is a scaffolding. This gives you a frame. You know where your expertise comes in as a pathologist, as a computer scientist, as a clinician, whoever else is part of this team, and you have the common language to speak to all the other members of the computational pathology team. So that's something. That's why I want to push the series to everybody who is even interested.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Well, thank you for including the three of us. Hopefully, you are able to manage this. It seemed to work out well. And maybe we set a precedent for you to include more than one.
Even more. Maybe I need to visit you in person, like we were discussing. But
Sure.
We will definitely meet each other at a conference. Which is your next conference? When are you ever going, all of you, to the same one?
Yes,
Or do you have to split? Are you going to Path Visions?
I think the one that pretty much all of us go to is USCAP. Like all three of us typically are at USCAP. Like we just came out of there. I mean, Liron and I are going to the European Digital Pathology Society meeting. So that's but yeah, so I'm sure we'll see each other.
Okay, then when we see each other, all four of us in one place, we have to do a live version of that. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule. It took us like half a year to schedule this. And thanks so much for writing the series.
Thank you. Thanks for being a big fan and big advocate. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your support.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.